Welcome back, Marketing Mavens, to another episode of the Marketing Science Lab. I'm Alex, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's as crucial as it is fascinating: consumer forgiveness.
That's right. I'm Sophie, and we're unpacking a literature review by Yorick, Shu, and Lee from the journal Psychology and Marketing. It's all about how brands can bounce back after those dreaded oops moments.
Oh, the dreaded oops moments. We've all been there, haven't we? Whether it's a product recall, a tone-deaf ad campaign, or a customer service nightmare, brands are constantly walking a tightrope.
Absolutely. And in today's hyper-connected world, one misstep can snowball into a full-blown PR crisis, faster than you can say Twitter storm.
Speaking of which, remember the Peloton ad fiasco of 2019. Talk about a marketing facepalm moment.
Oh my gosh, how could I forget? A well-intentioned holiday ad that somehow managed to offend, well, pretty much everyone. But you know what's interesting? Peloton actually saw a surge in sales afterward. It's a perfect example of how complex the consumer forgiveness journey can be.
Exactly. And that's why this research is so valuable. It gives us a framework to understand the psychological processes behind consumer forgiveness. According to the paper, it's not just a simple "I'm sorry" and move on. It's a whole coping process.
Oh, tell me more about this coping process. It sounds like something straight out of a therapy session.
Well, in a way, it is. The researchers propose that consumer forgiveness follows a similar pattern to how we deal with personal conflicts. It starts with a stimulus, the brand's mistake, followed by 2 stages of appraisal.
2 stages, huh? Is this like a video game where you have to pass level 1 to get to level 2?
Not quite, but I like where your head's at. Think of it more like a courtroom drama. In the first stage, or primary appraisal, consumers are like detectives. They're trying to figure out how bad the transgression really is and who's to blame.
Oh, I get it. So they're asking questions like, was this an honest mistake or did the brand know better? And is this a one-time thing or a pattern of behavior?
Exactly. And this is where attribution theory comes into play. The study found that consumers are more likely to forgive if they believe the mistake was unintentional or out of the brand's control.
That makes sense. I mean, if my favorite coffee shop burns my order once, I might let it slide. But if it happens every single time, we're going to have a problem.
Right you are. And that leads us to the second stage, secondary appraisal. This is where consumers evaluate the brand's recovery efforts. They're asking, is the brand making it right? Is their apology sincere? Is the compensation fair?
So it's not just about saying sorry, it's about showing sorry.
Bingo. And this is where the concept of justice comes in. The study identifies 3 types of justice that brands need to nail in their recovery efforts: distributive, procedural, and interactional.
Ooh, slow down there, Professor. Can we break those down for our listeners who might not have a degree in marketing jargon?
Of course, let's use a real-world example. Remember when KFC ran out of chicken in the UK a few years ago?
Oh my gosh, yes. The great chicken shortage of 2018. What a clucking disaster that was.
Nice pun there. But it's actually a great example of handling these 3 types of justice. Distributive justice is about fair compensation. KFC offered vouchers to affected customers. That's distributive justice.
Ah, got it. So procedural justice would be having a clear process for how customers could claim those vouchers.
Exactly. And interactional justice is all about how the brand communicates during the crisis. KFC nailed this with their cheeky FCK apology ad. It was honest, humble, and injected some humor into a tense situation.
I remember that ad. It was brilliant. But here's a question: does humor always work in these situations? I can imagine some crises where a joke might fall flat.
That's an excellent point. The study actually touches on this, emphasizing that recovery strategies need to be tailored to the specific situation and the individual consumer. One size definitely doesn't fit all when it comes to forgiveness.
Ma'am, so it's like picking the right outfit for a first date. You need to consider the occasion, the person, and the mood you want to set.
That's actually a pretty apt analogy, and just like in dating, having a strong pre-existing relationship can be a huge advantage when seeking forgiveness.
Oh, interesting. So brands that have built up a lot of goodwill have more wiggle room when they mess up?
Generally, yes, the study calls this relationship banking. It's like having a good credit score with your customers. It gives you some leeway when things go wrong. But there's a catch.
Isn't there always? Let me guess, with great power comes great responsibility?
Something like that. The study found that when consumers have a strong relationship with a brand, they might actually feel more betrayed if that brand messes up. It's like finding out your best friend has been lying to you. It hurts more than if a stranger did it.
Ouch. So brands can't just coast on past goodwill. They need to put in the work to maintain trust, even, or especially, when things go wrong.
Absolutely. And in today's digital age, that work happens in real time and on a global stage. The study highlights how social media has completely changed the game when it comes to brand crises and forgiveness.
Oh, don't I know it? One tweet can spark a firestorm faster than you can say trending topic. How does the research suggest brands navigate this minefield?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of monitoring social sentiment in real time and having rapid response plans in place. But here's where it gets really interesting. The study also talks about leveraging brand communities during crises.
Brand communities? Like those ride or die Apple fans who'll defend the company no matter what?
That's certainly one example. But brand communities can be any group of loyal customers who feel a connection not just to the product, but to the brand's values and identity. The research suggests that positive sentiment within these communities can actually influence individual consumers' decisions to forgive.
Fascinating. So nurturing these communities isn't just about driving sales. It's also about creating a support network for when things go wrong?
Exactly. It's like having a group of friends who'll vouch for your character when you make a mistake. But here's where the research gets really forward-thinking. It starts to explore how AI and automation might impact consumer forgiveness.
Oh, now we're getting into sci-fi territory. What did they find?
Well, it's still early days, but the study raises some intriguing questions. For instance, how do consumers attribute blame when AI chatbot messes up versus a human customer service rep? Do we hold AI to different standards?
That's mind-bending stuff. I mean, can you even forgive an AI? It's not like it has feelings to hurt.
Exactly. And that's why this is such a crucial area for future research. As more and more of our interactions with brands become automated, we need to understand how that impacts the forgiveness process.
It's like we're entering a whole new frontier of brand-consumer relationships. Speaking of which, did the study have any insights on cultural differences in forgiveness? I imagine what works in one market might totally backfire in another.
You're spot on. The research emphasizes the importance of cultural intelligence in forgiveness strategies. What's considered a sincere apology in one culture might come across as insincere or even offensive in another.
So global brands need to have culturally informed crisis playbooks for different regions?
Absolutely. It's an investment that can pay off big time when a crisis hits. And speaking of investment, the study also touches on the role of self-concept maintenance in forgiveness.
Self-concept maintenance? That sounds heavy. Break it down for me.
Sure thing. Basically, it's the idea that sometimes consumers forgive brands not just because of what the brand does, but because forgiving aligns with how they see themselves. Maybe they pride themselves on being understanding, or they want to maintain their identity as a loyal customer.
Oh, I get it. It's like when I keep forgiving my favorite local bookstore for constantly messing up my orders because I want to support small businesses. It's not just about their apology, it's about who I want to be.
Exactly. And that's why understanding consumer psychology is so crucial in crafting effective forgiveness strategies. It's not just about fixing the problem, it's about appealing to consumers' values and self-image.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to ask, with all this focus on forgiveness, are we letting brands off the hook too easily? Shouldn't there be consequences for major screw-ups?
That's a great question, and it's actually addressed in the study. The researchers emphasize that forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior or pretending it didn't happen. It's about creating a path forward that acknowledges a mistake but allows for the relationship to continue and potentially grow stronger.
I see. So it's not about sweeping things under the rug, but about building more resilient brand-consumer relationships that can weather the occasional storm.
Exactly. And in today's competitive marketplace, that resilience can be a major competitive advantage. Brands that master the art of earning forgiveness are better positioned to retain customers long-term and even turn crises into opportunities for deeper connection.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. Any final thoughts for our listeners who might be facing a brand crisis of their own?
I think the key takeaway is that forgiveness isn't guaranteed, but it is possible if you approach it strategically. Be transparent, tailor your recovery efforts, show genuine remorse, and always focus on rebuilding trust. And remember, sometimes your biggest brand advocates can be your best allies in a crisis.
Fantastic advice. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Marketing Science Lab. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of consumer forgiveness. Remember, in the world of marketing, it's not if you'll face a crisis, it's when, so start building those forgiveness muscles now.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us create content that's valuable to you. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep learning, and may all your marketing mishaps be forgivable ones.
Amen to that. See you next time.